23.9%. That's the average open rate for a cold email right now. Another way of thinking about that is three-quarters of the emails that you send to prospects, they'll never even see. The reason why that's a problem is if you spend effort personalizing your emails, which is what we generally are taught to do, right? We know that in order to get an executive or someone really busy, their attention, we need to have some sort of personalization in the email. We need to research them. All of this takes time and it can be extremely time intensive. And all of that completely goes out the window and completely to waste if the person never opens the email. So, what we're going to talk about in this episode is a subject line formula you can use to get 40 to 50% open rates. If you're checking this out for the first time, welcome to Outbound Squad. My name's Jason. Most people call me JBay. If you're an account executive or SDR that's doing some prospecting, landing meetings, wanting to land meetings with prospective customers, you're definitely in the right place. And if you're a sales leader managing teams of people that you want to do more outbound, AEs that you want to self source more pipeline, you're definitely in the right place. So today we're going to talk about subject lines. So some other interesting data for you. And this one's from SalesLoft. If you imagine a graph that shows open and reply rates, so success rates of an email versus the amount of words that are in that email, what they found is that the highest open and reply rates to emails are typically 5 word or less subject lines. So the thing that we want to keep in consideration, which it's a pretty short subject line if you're not already sending emails like this, is we want to think about what does the prospect's internal communication style look like and how can I emulate that? Our friends Will Allred over at Lavender calls this internal camouflage. So how can I send an email that looks a lot like something that they would get from someone internally? And the goal is not to deceive them, it's to speak in their language and speak in the style in which they speak. So less than 5 words. So that constraint is where we want to start. It's got to be 5 words or less, or it's got to be so like personalized and for that person that there's just no mistaking it was for them. So I want to match the prospect's internal communication style. So I call these boring subject lines. The premise here is I think that people spend way too much time trying to get creative. It takes a lot of time and it burns a lot of your willpower and energy. I want you to err on the side of being like boringly obvious, like to the point what this email is about. So there's a couple different formulas I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to give you a lot of examples. So one thing that you could do is point out a specific problem. So let's say that you're selling a CX solution or a digital experience solution, and you're able to go on a website and see a problem that the prospect has. And let's say that you go on a specific page that should have a chatbot on it, or the chatbot is not functioning correctly, or maybe it goes to a chatbot when in reality, if a person was there to answer the questions, they might be, more inclined to actually purchase the product, especially if it's out of stock. And let's say it's a Canada Goose page, right? So the bad subject line here would be to say something like AI powered enterprise CX. That just screams sales email, and that's not something that peer to peer the director of CX is going to send around the team with a subject line. This is AI powered enterprise CX. What they might respond to and open is Canada Goose chatbot, right? So the Canada Goose page, the chatbot, right? What they might respond to is negative review from insert customer's name versus we can get you more 5-star reviews. So think about, and you might have to replay some of this to listen back to it. Think about how they might talk to each other. Negative review, chatbot on this page, right? It's very specific and tactical to things that are on that page, and internal language is what we're trying to use here. Industry trends or problems is another really great one. Um, One of my clients from a while back, they sell an automated welding solution. So they're reaching out to VPs of manufacturing, VPs of operations, and the number one thing on their mind is a labor shortage of welders. So the way the market looks right now is there are like the demand for welders is outpacing the amount of people that are getting into these kinds of blue collar jobs. Their subject line, 1 word, welders, 90+% open rate. It's the number one thing that is on the mind of the people they're reaching out to. So if there's a macro trend or problem or trigger or some sort of compelling event that creates natural urgency, that could be your subject line. Company initiatives. This is one of my favorite ones. Um, so think about specifically what a company might be openly talking about. So I'm working with a client right now. They sell a software that really helps, solar and renewable energy companies. They helps them essentially um, do two things better. One is like pick better sites. So when they're trying to look for where to put their solar farm, there's a big intensive process of like doing like the research and due diligence on that land and making sure they get the right land. There's like consultants, people pay all kinds of stuff. And without giving away too much, what they would put in the subject line is the name of the project. So if there's specific projects that they've been working on, you literally just put the name of that project. That's going to be internal language that they use at that company. It's not going to be, shorten the amount of time for inspection or shorten due diligence time. Like that's a sales email. I want to put the name of the project because that's more likely to grab the attention of people that are working on that project. If your company sells into publicly traded companies, Seeking Alpha is another really great resource. So instead of saying reduce call center costs, if that's what you help with, the subject line could be interconnection cost reduction. That's like the name of the specific initiative. A couple other ones I'll share with you. One's a LinkedIn quote. I was, for fun, writing an email to the CFO at SalesLoft as an exercise, and the goal was to get their attention by selling financial analytics software. Now, what I could put in the subject line is, financial analytics software or finance analytics or get better data or whatever, right? The name of the platform. Instead, what I put was SalesLoft IPO because that's what the CFO talked about a lot was being always prepared for the IPO. And he wrote a LinkedIn post on it about it. So I put the name of the post and the topic of that post into the subject line. Lastly, people on their team. So if you sell an HR solution, let's say, for example, you could say HR hiring solution, improve hiring time, shorten time to ramp. Like you could put all these things in the subject line. Those are just scream sales email again. Or you could pick two people in the HR team, Barry Parker and Katie Grouper. And my email could lead into how the amount of manual work that those two folks are spending on the team and the platform is really keeping you guys from growing or accomplishing XYZ. So the key learning this week is keep the subject lines boring, simple, short, under 5 words as your constraint, and make it all about the prospect. Do not talk about you, your solution, none of that kind of stuff. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Leave us an honest rating on Spotify or Apple Podcast if you enjoyed the podcast. That would really help, and we'll see you next episode.